Okay, we have one more thing to talk about in lesson 1-6, and that is how you would handle a word problem with a system of equations. So, in our little word problem right here, we are trying to decide between two different classes, and they have different rates that they charge. There's a class A and there's a class B. The best thing to do in a situation like this is try to make an equation for each of my two classes. Class A has a $50 fee that you have to pay when you register, and then every hour of class is going to cost you $85. So when you write an equation for a problem like this, you're going to write them generally in y equals mx plus b format to get your total. And when you do this, there's a little trick you can use. If a number occurs one time, this $50 fee is just a one time fee. It does not repeat, so it doesn't get a variable. This 50 is going to end up being my y-intercept. It's my starting amount, and it's going to go over here. This $85, though, repeats every hour I attend class. So the number that repeats is like your slope. It gets x on it, the variable, because it repeats. So, like, if I wanted to go to 4 hours of class, I would do 85 times 4. But I would add on the one time fee that does not get a variable. So, repeating number is your slope, one time number is your y intercept. This is an equation for the first class. The second class is way more expensive to sign up. They want $800 off the bat, but they are cheaper in the long run. So it depends on how long you're going to be doing this class for. So I'm going to go 52x plus 800. And my job right now is to figure out where these two graphs are going to intersect each other. This is a system of equations. Now, graphing these by hand would be really kind of rough because the numbers are so big. It just would be very difficult to see where they cross each other. So what I'm going to end up doing here is actually make a graph on my calculator. If I can make my calculator pop up here. All right, so I'm going to pull up my calculator here and show you guys how you would go about graphing these two equations. So the graphing menu on our calculator we've talked about before is up here in the y equals button. So I'm going to hit that, and I'm going to type my two equations in y1 and y2 of my calculator, so that way I can see them both at the same time. The calculators we use in our classroom are a little bit nicer than this, and they graph in color. This is a little bit more old school. But some of you who might have a calculator at home, you might have a kind like this. It does all the same stuff, though. So once I have my two equations typed in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit graph. And every time you graph, it's a good idea to start by resetting the window that you're looking at right here to make sure nothing weird is going on. The way you do that is zoom standard, which is number 6. So if I choose zoom standard, that's what I was actually already looking at. It's the default screen right here. And this is terrible. I can't see anything worth seeing right now in my picture. The reason for that is this tick mark right here goes up to 10. But if you look at your y-intercepts, I have a 50 and I have an 800. Everything is off the picture. It's like way up here right now, and I just can't see it. So the best way to change what you're looking at is to go to the window menu. If I go to window, for now I'm going to leave the x's alone. X min and x max means the x's go from -10 to +10. X scale is how much tick marks go by. So my tick marks are only going by ones on the x. For right now, I'm going to leave everything the same, but I'm going to make my y max a whole lot bigger because I'm only going to 10 and I have an 800 for my y-intercept. So I'm going to change this to 1,000 for y max and leave everything else the same for right now. And you can see that the picture goes a lot higher. I can see 2 lines now, which is an improvement, but this is like all bold and like weird looking because that's going by ones. I can't even see 1,000 tick marks. It just blends together. So I need to do better. I need to see even higher because this isn't going to show me where they cross. I'm also going to change my y scaling. And the way you would do this, it's really just trial and error. You just play around with it until you're happy with it. I'm going to change y max to a 2,000, and I'm going to make my y scale go by hundreds here. So each tick mark is going to be worth 100 on the y. And it's really just trial and error as I do this here. I see my one line. I see my second line. So I can probably see high enough right now. They're just crossing somewhere like over there. So now what I need to do is I need to change my x's. Right now I'm only seeing to 10. I'm going to just choose 100 for this and keep everything else the same. Well, I'll go by tens on my x since I'm going all the way to 100. And if I do that, there's one line, there's the other. I can almost see where they cross. So I'm basically modeling for you guys just the way you would play around with it. 100 is way bigger than I needed it to be, actually. So I'm going to backpedal. I'm going to go to 50 on my x. And if I go to 50, I can probably get by with going by 5s here, but I need to see a little bit higher yet. So I'm going to go to 3,000 for my y. So I got my first graph. I got my second graph, and at long last, I can see where these two graphs cross. So you can find where they cross, because you actually want to know that coordinate a couple different ways. If you start moving the arrows around, it gives you like a little cursor right here, and you can move it close to where the answer is. There's also a button called Trace right here that actually puts you on the graph. It locks you on. So you can get a pretty good idea of where these lines cross by doing it that way. The real official way to do this, though, is to hit second. So you're going to hit this blue button and calculate. It's on the second trace. The calculate menu has an option that says intersects. So I'm going to choose that option right there. And the calculator is going to prompt me with a couple questions. When it says first curve, it wants to know what your first graph is. I'm just going to hit enter. Second curve, it's going to move it to the other graph, and I'm going to hit enter again. If you have just two graphs right there, you can just click enter, enter through those two things, and it'll take care of it for you. If you had more graphs, you'd have to specify which ones you want. Lastly, it's going to say guess. It puts me close to where I think the answer is, so I just make sure I'm close. I hit enter again, and it's going to give me the actual true intersection points. If you just click enter, 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 it should get you the right answer as long as there's only two graphs on your picture. So the answer is about 22.7. 1981.81. So I'm going to write that down. 22.7. These graphs intersect at about 22.7. It was 1981.81. That's my intersection points. So if that is going to be my intersection point, let me see if I can make my calculator come back real fast. It starts out where this bottom graph right here, this is the equation A, 85x plus 50, starts out lower. It's cheaper for this class right here. But eventually you hit a point where that class becomes more expensive because they're charging you more per hour. And the second class starts out way more expensive, and then it gets cheaper in the long run because it eventually is charging you less per hour. So the answer to this question, which class is going to be a better deal? Well, the answer is it depends on how long you're going to use the class for. If you are going to attend 22.7 hours of class, it's going to cost you this much money no matter which class you choose. So if you are going to attend the class for less than 22.7 hours, let me double check to make sure it's actually 22.7. Don't want to be saying the wrong number if I'm mistaken here. Yeah, 22.7. So if it's less than 22.7 hours, you're going to want to go with class and look at which one that would actually be. That'd be class A in that situation. So less than 22.7 hours, you're going to go with class A. It starts out cheaper, but it's eventually more expensive. If you're going to go for more than 22.7, you're going to want to choose class B. If you wanted, I want exactly 22.7 hours of class, it wouldn't matter which one you choose. So this video kind of shows you guys how you make your equations, how you analyze them, and how you can graph them on your calculator.